I really am appreciative of your friendship. I I I can't. It's beyond me at this point.
Oh my goodness. Well, we're both INFJs. Of course we're going to be friends. Of course we are. Yeah. I think we've had some really great conversations, and I really appreciate how candid you've been about some of your experiences. And I was really touched. You sent me a recording earlier, and I was really touched by that, Liza. Really beautiful. Yeah.
I just wanted to make it comfortable for you because I know this is not second nature for either of us.
True. Although there is a part of me that kind of likes to be on stage. I don't like to interact with a whole lot of people because I'm an introvert too, but I kind of enjoy, you know, being, in a position where I don't have to interact with a lot of people, but I could kind of do, share some stuff. So yeah, it was fun to get your invitation.
I remember when I was a kid, I had to be Fanny Floss. Like I have a vivid memory of like wearing like this cardboard thing of floss, and I had to like just remember two or three words and be on stage, but it was not comfortable for
Well, I can get real stage fright too. I can absolutely get real stage fright. So, um, yeah, but it works better when I feel like I'm in flow and when I can kind of be just natural. So, yeah.
me. Um, do you remember how you found me on Quora? Like,
I
um,
think you commented on one of my
oh,
answers.
okay.
Yeah. And then I try to follow up when people do that. And then I don't know. I mean, I don't know how it happened from there.
And then you
So,
invited me to the NF call, which I'm so grateful for because
okay.
it's made a big difference for me.
Well, I'm so glad. And you're a great contribution to those calls too. Feel very, very tickled that you've been coming to those. They're they're an interesting phenomenon, and I'm actually just learning more about what they're about. And I thought maybe we could talk about that a little bit today, kind of based around. You had sent me a video of you giving your speeches at Toastmasters, which was what, 5 years ago or something.
Mhm.
Yeah. And that is a very empowered, confident Liza. And I was looking at that and thinking, okay, it fits absolutely in with something that we are discovering about why it's important for intuitive feelers to be talking with other intuitive feelers. So let's start by just asking you, why have those intuitive conversations calls that you've been attending, why have they been important to you? What have they done? What have they contributed?
I think for me, it's relative. Like I compare what it was like before before these calls or before being invited. No one cared to listen. And I think for me, growing up, I was always caring to listen to other people. And then when you have other people coming around you, like I want to invite you to speak. That's not usual.
Okay, so it was being heard, maybe. Yeah. Well, those calls we've done over 2,000 hours now of those calls.
Wow.
And they've been a research for us. And what we've been learning from them is just profound. The biggest thing is that they're very simple, as they're very simple. Um, but because we're all intuitive feelers, there's a sense of trust that we don't have anywhere else. We kind of feel like we're like, okay, well, not to say that somebody won't ever act out and, not be safe, but for the most part, the women who have been attending these calls, and so far we've done just women, we're going to start including men very soon. Um, but there's this sense of, no, we all need to feel safe. We all need to feel seen and heard and understood. So that's what we've been noticing. And then it's always beautiful when somebody like you comes back and says, yeah, they're making a difference. And sometimes it's really hard to even talk about why. What is the difference? What is the difference that they're making? But one of the things that seems to be pretty common is that over the time, and I think you've been coming, what, several months now? Once a week and sometimes twice a week? Yeah, 2 Monday calls and Wednesday calls. I think your voice gets, not the volume of your voice, but the confidence in your voice gets stronger and stronger.
And that's scary for me, actually. Because there is safety in silence too. But as the years have rolled on, I realized like the things that go unsaid are also sporadic for me. I don't speak to family because they're used to me being silent. They're used to me being just passive.
Mhm.
But I have to use my voice in my work, my personal relationships. I have to ask for things. And I'm not always confident about it because I'm seeking to extend myself and have reciprocation. And sometimes I feel like I'm cornering people sometimes.
Interesting. Yeah, like you're cornering people. So you feel like you're being too assertive?
Yeah, I remember years and years ago, there was a director that wasn't responding to me. And then I had to, like, that was my job, like, get get his response. And I M'd him, I emailed him, and then I ended up like walking to his desk, like, when are you gonna respond to me? And then he's like, what's wrong with you? Yeah, yeah.
Well, there is something about intuitive feelers that we all share. And that is that we walk around, some of us do really well, like you did it in Toastmasters. You did really, really well getting up there, doing the thing, being very confident, being very understandable. But the way that I would say it is that you were following all of the rules of the sensing majority culture we live in. And they got it. And that's a very sensing majority group because, it's all about performance and under very strict guidelines, right?
Well, the mentor that I had there when I joined the group, when I moved here, I was seeking out communities, and that particular club was very small. And I was there for 5 years. So at the end, what you saw was the 5 year
Mm-hmm.
groomed Liza. But it was a tough year because my mentor was not comfortable with me having a voice. We ended up clashing because she still wanted the control.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, my experience there, my brief experience, was that I didn't fit at all because as an NF like you, I'm very unique. And there's a lot of about conformity that goes there. But what we can know about it is that you have the capacity to perform in that world. You saw yourself do it. You're on video doing it. But I think what's happening now is that you're getting in touch with your authentic voice, which is a whole different thing. And for us intuitive feelers, it's scary because there's so much complexity in there that we haven't had the opportunity to really share. And then when we start, sometimes we're blurting, we're just blurting. We can't stop because, oh my gosh, somebody's listening to me for the first time. Do you recognize that?
Yeah.
And then other times it's like, oh, I don't want to say that. Or very often we'll have people on our calls who will report later, oh, I can't believe I said that on the call. And it's like, no, that's what these calls are for, is for you to actually be your very most real self. Yeah. And it's a different thing. It's a totally different thing. Totally different thing.
And when I was a Toastmaster for several years, I often approach things like the beginner mindset. Like it's just, I'm a beginner. I'm always a beginner. Like it's I'm never an expert. And maybe that's my I don't know, Achilles heel, because I don't ever want to see myself as an expert. I don't know if I make sense, but it's like I want to bring everybody out in their beginner's mindset. Like, but I've been a project manager for 11 years, and I'm always trying to like gather people up by not being intimidating.
Well, that's also an NF thing. It's like we want everybody to shine, and we will sit on our own shining. I'm sorry, I've got a sword back today, but
Oh,
we'll stuff our own sense of presence in order to leave room for other people. Yeah.
yeah.
What's going on there?
No, I have a Chihuahua upstairs. He was dropped off. I take care of a few dogs sometimes whenever it's needed, and he's just howling and crying, and I
Oh,
feel so
there.
bad. I feel so bad for him. He's just,
Oh,
yeah. And the thing is, it's like I relate to him. It's like I feel abandoned. I feel dropped off.
of course.
That's like yeah, I'm glad you don't hear it because it's out there.
Yeah, I can't hear it at all.
But that's how I felt like I've taken care of him before, and he goes through this the first day. But I was thinking about like a relationship I had in my 20s, and when we broke up, I think I mentioned this. I think he was an INFP. I don't know. I just suspect we never fought. But when we broke up, it was the first time in my life that I saw him have an emotional expression. Like he cried. I'm like, whoa. Because I see, this is where NF men are confusing to me. Um, though they seem to vibe with me, but like when it's like, come on, do some emotional expression. And then when he did, I was like, wow, I didn't see that coming.
Mhm.
So yeah. So I remember like going through that breakup, and I remember feeling like a lost puppy, like, oh my gosh, it's over with him. It's blah blah blah. And then I married, and I think was an INTJ, which I felt very safe and at home with for a decade. Um, yeah, I guess I've always gravitated towards intuitives, but sensors also like kind of help me ground and get concrete.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
I'm with an ISFJ for the past 6 years, and I always like, oh, get me around. Like I can't stand like driving. I can't stand like he always like will help me put things together, or I was with an ISTJ in the past. He always helped me
Mm.
put things together. Yeah.
They're great with structure.
Yeah.
We have challenges with structure. Yeah, yeah, we do. Because
When did you stumble upon this stuff?
well, I was involved with a psychologist friend in the early 1990s. And we created a life design journey called LifeGate. And we ran it for 4 years. It was a 4 weekend series that we just kept running, one after another. And as a part of that, she was pretty much an expert on the Myers-Briggs. And she really encouraged me to get certified to administer the Myers-Briggs for part of the programming, which I did. And that's when I learned that I was an INFJ. And I also learned so much about my family because my children are all NFs. We're all,
Awesome.
and yeah, I'm the only J. So there was a lot of stuff that I learned that was very helpful to me and insightful. And then I moved into a coaching career where I realized very soon that I could not coach sensing types. They didn't get me and I didn't get them. Just we just were like, And so I limited my career to intuitives, intuitive thinkers, intuitive feelers. And at that time, mostly I was working with men and mostly they were intuitive thinkers. So I learned a lot about that for about 20 years. I ran that practice for about 20 years. And then in 2012, I thought I want to work with intuitive women. So I started this group, it was called Sparkle School. And that was the genesis of what I do now and where I am now. But the real clicker, the real kicker, I should say, came in 2020 with COVID, because just as COVID was coming in, we were deciding to do this series called Intuitive Conversations, and everybody was home, right? So it was immediate response. And we were doing a Zoom call. Well, and we were on a phone platform at that time, but we were doing a call every day during the week. So 5 days a week, we were doing a call. And we were seeing this research into intuitive personality types. Well, it didn't take very long for us to realize that the only people who were really interested were the NFs. The NTs really didn't care. They would get in and they would kind of scratch their heads and, they'd go their way. But intuitive feelers really related. So that was like 4 years ago. That's when, this group of women that I had been working with for almost 10 years decided, all right, let's narrow our focus and let's really get dialogues going with intuitive feelers. And that's where it came. And then I've been responding to questions on Quora too for the last couple of years, and which is where, of course, I met you, but in that NF space. And that has been also really, really interesting for me. Yeah, and expanding for me.
I'm just gonna end the recording because I don't think it needs to be further.
I'll ask you questions.
Okay. I just wanted to just say that I'm really grateful. I don't know how you found me.